In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory, come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I demand the full power of beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come forth now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light of 10,000 suns, beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Around this fortune now. I call upon the single sunlight. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved is there, beloved is there, beloved is there. I call upon the electronic solar, the rings of the electronic solar, the sun of God. I call upon the fire rings. I call for the rings of the electronic sun.
Good morning or good afternoon. I've got to get used to a whole new time zone here now that I'm doing this show from the center of the country. I think I was too far left before. Now I'm right in the center. I can be left and right at the same time, which is more than I can say probably for the rest of the country right now. Good morning. This is Robert Phoenix, and you are listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. It is my first show in 2 weeks, and some of you might be aware of the fact. In fact, most of you are probably aware of the fact that I've moved. I'd lived in Northern California for the last 7 years in the small refinery town known as Point Richmond for the last 3, just a stone's throw away from the Richmond refinery, which is one of a series of refineries up and down the north end of the bay, in the Bay Area. And my last 2 months there, I think it was in September, there was a major fire that took place, and essentially was evacuated out of my house. Well, I did it myself, but it was recommended that we not be at our homes within such close proximity of the refinery. And that was one of my last big moments living in that area. And I'm here now. I'm here in Austin, Texas, and it's a very different place. It's different for me astrologically. And essentially what I did is I did a relocated chart for this area. And in the relocated chart, I have Pluto on my ascendant. So everything shifts. And what's interesting about my relocated chart here is that it actually conforms to the same style of chart that Nostradamus used to cast. And how Nostradamus would cast a chart is that he would take the dragon's head and he would put it right on the ascendant, the dragon's head being the moon's north node. Because at that time, not everyone knew their time of birth. What happened was that Nostradamus could predict, based on the ephemeris and the charting of the known stars and aspects of that time, he could see where the north node of the moon was, or the dragon's head. And that would be the one constant throughout all the charts. And that would then be on the ascendant. And then all the other houses would then unfold from the dragon's head. And of course, the dragon's tail would be in the 7th house. So classically, in Nostradamus' system, the most important and strongest aspect of the chart would be the ascendant or the first house. And the weakest and most vulnerable aspect of the chart would be in the house of relationships. And the type of relationship that you would draw to you would be based on of course, the dragon's tail, and therefore would either complete you or allow you to work on an aspect of yourself that was not strong. So there's some interesting components in terms of the growth of self and being able to cast a chart with the dragon's head on the ascendant. So because of my relocated chart here in Austin, I have Pluto on my ascendant. It's right on my ascendant, Pluto in Virgo. It makes me a Virgo rising. And if you looked at my apartment right now, you wouldn't know that. But then again, I just got here. And I have the North Node is also in Virgo in my chart. So it's now in the first house. So my chart essentially is a replica of a Nostradamian chart. And wouldn't be the same for everyone. You might show up differently in other places. So if I had moved to, say, I don't know, Boston, I would not have the same relocated chart. So in California, I had Uranus on my ascendant. And here Uranus moves to the 12th house, and Pluto now moves right up to my ascendant. And I've had some Uranus 12th house moments already. Let me give you an example of a Uranus 12th house moment I've had. It was not this past Monday, but the previous Monday. It was a Monday night football game. I had no TV. In fact, I don't even have cable TV to begin with. I have Netflix. And I'll tell you about a Netflix movie I saw last night, which was actually quite interesting. So if I want to go out and watch football, and I'm a football fan, I'm a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, I have to go out. I have to go somewhere and watch the game. So I'm new to the area, of course, and I found this one restaurant, which is about 5 miles away, and they have Tex-Mex food, and they have margaritas and very good chips and very nice salsa. It's called Santa Rita. What's interesting is that the Santa Rita that I'm familiar with from where I live is a prison, and it's out in Contra Costa County. But here it's a restaurant. So some of you may or may not know much about my life and what my situation is, but I have a son, he's 8, and I have an ex-wife, and she has a fiance, and I moved here because she got a job here. And it was a good job for her. It was kind of the job of her life, where she thought at the time, we'll see how it goes. It's a very unusual set of circumstances with her job. But she asked me if I wanted to come here and relocate. And since we have a 50-50 custody split with my son, I had to give her my assent in order for it to happen. And I work out of my home, so I can pretty much do this anywhere. And I could feel that the energy was leaving me, or leaving that area for me in California. I'd been there for 7 years, originally from Northern California, moved away, came back in the year 2005 and left now in 2007. I did a 7-year cycle in Northern California. So the energy had evaporated for me. I've been in a 9-year this year. It was a 9-month. September was a 9-month. That's when everything began to shut down. And then I left in October, which is a 1 month for me. Just at the end of October, right when Saturn, by the way, was going into Scorpio. So it was a massive change for me based on the Saturn shift. So here I am in Austin, and I have a new place to live. I have my 2 cats now, which I've inherited from my ex-wife because her fiance has allergies to cats. So I'm here and I'm carving out a new chapter in my life. And I decide to go to this restaurant last Monday night and watch the 49er game. And I'm sitting at the bar and I'm having a margarita. It's a happy hour margarita. And there's a bartender there named Brittany. It's her birthday. So I'm helping her celebrate her birthday. And all of a sudden I hear a, "Hey, Dad, what are you doing here?" And I look to my right, and it's my son. I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" Watching the football game. We talked for a while. It was actually his first day of school that day, that Monday. We talked a little bit about that. I said, "So is your mom and blankety blank here?" He said, "Yeah." So I walked over and I said hello. We talked for a little bit. Pleasantries. Nothing too deep. And then I went back to the bar and had my margarita and my chips and salsa. While they had their experience. It was one of the strangest things I had ever experienced in my life. Really. It was surreal. It was absolutely surreal. Here they were. There was my kid over there with his family. And there I was at the isthmus of that experience, sitting at a bar, celebrating a stranger's birthday. And it triggered for me a series of feelings and associations which were I'm still working with. And this, by the way, is Uranus in the 12th house. This is when things just pop out of nowhere. And the term we would use would be high strangeness or strange attraction or weirdness. Some people would say randomness. Because the 12th house is it's the most mysterious of all the houses. And Uranus there is an interesting driver, to say the least. So there would be unusual phenomena that would surface very quickly. And what's also fascinating, quickly now to blue, what's also fascinating is that it's in Leo. And so what does Leo represent? It represents child rearing, parenting, things like that. So I filed that away. And eventually I matriculated home and did my thing. Well, 2 days later, I'm reading this piece, and if you are not aware of, Fritz Springmeier and Cisco Wheeler's work, I urge you to find it on the internet. It's readily available. You can buy Fritz Springmeier's books, but you can also find it all pretty much online. Maybe I'll even put a link in the chat room here before the end of the show. And Cisco Wheeler is a woman very much like Kathy O'Brien or Arizona Wilder or Svali, who claims to have been a mind-controlled slave for the quote-unquote Illuminati. And I decided 2 nights ago to read a section on Disney because I was researching some material related to Disney and programming. And there's a large, and I mean an extremely large dissertation on Walt Disney, who he was, his brother's son, who currently runs Disney. Disney just bought George Lucas and Lucasfilm, by the way. Disney is enormous. They own Lucasfilms, which means they own all of the Star Wars marketing, and product, and all the copyrights, and all the patents, and they own everything. Everything. Disney owns Pixar. Disney owns ABC. Disney owns ESPN. And those are just the frontline media franchises and companies that Disney holds. There is a lot more to Disney, including land development, the amount of diversification that's gone on at Disney since the 80s, when the likes of Michael Ovitz and Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner were involved, is staggering, absolutely staggering. So I got into this Disney piece, and there's two things that go on in this exhumation of Disney's past and present. And what Cisco Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier do is they talk about sort of the history, the lineage, and then they get into the programming aspects of Disney. And one of the films that they talk about is a movie called Stella. And Stella in and of itself is a code, right? It's star. Star is also a very prominent symbol here in Texas, by the way. The 5-pointed star, which is the symbol of man. Each point represents something. The horizontal points are arms. The vertical axis of the star is the head, and then the two diagonal parts of the 5-point star are the legs. It represents universal man, Da Vinci. And 5 is the number of man, by the way. And if you weren't aware, the Washington Monument is 555 feet, 0.5 feet high. 555.5, that's the Washington Monument. Interesting, huh? So Stella, the movie Stella, stars Bette Midler, who, according to Cisco Wheeler, is a mind-controlled slave, an MK Beta. And there's a scene in Stella, I've not seen the movie, but there's a scene in Stella where Bette Midler watches her daughter's wedding from the outside of a church. And that scene is to convey that these people are often, quote unquote, slaves, are often given the sense that they don't have their own lives, that they're experiencing their own lives from the outside looking in. And when I read that, it completely reminded me of sitting at that bar on Monday night, watching my own experience from the outside in the family that I used to be a part of, now looking something very different. It was unnerving, I will tell you that right now. And I began to think about programming at a deep level, and how, and there's an astrological angle to this, by the way, which I'll get to, and how what we perceive at times to be our own choices, our own volition, are anything but, and that we may think we are living in a certain way or doing a certain thing. And really what it is it's a result of some very complex and sophisticated programming. Some of that is intentional, and some of that is ambient or omnidirectional. I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine the other day. And I see, by the way, 780 and 804, don't go away. I'm going to do some readings. I see you in there. Don't go away, okay? I'm going to get to you. I just need to finish this. I want to talk about the election a little bit too, because it kind of goes along with what I'm saying here. So I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine, this whole notion of programming. At a fundamental level, we are all raised in a particular milieu. We're either raised as secular humanists, or we're raised as some offshoot of Christianity, or perhaps we're raised in a Jewish household, whatever those things are. So there are cultural tenets that are associated with religious belief. That's one layer of inherited programming that people get. Then there's another layer of programming, which is going to be coming from schools and the curriculum that is passed on to the individual. By the way, the school system was started by the Rockefellers. So just do the math on that. Then there's another layer of programming which comes in through media and through things like cartoons, especially when you're young, or TV shows, or sports, or commercials. So there's another layer of programming that comes in. Then you get a layer of programming that isn't necessarily your religious faith or non-faith, depending upon how you grew up, but now it's also your parents and your familial programming, like what goes on in your family, for better or worse. And you add all these things together, and you what happens now is you are as an individual, you are at the hands or at the mercy of these forces, especially as a young being. You're at the mercy of these forces. Now, this gets played out in the chart, by the way. This gets played out with Neptune. This gets played out with Chiron. These are areas where programming becomes quite evident, and it gets played out with the moon. Those are three aspects of the chart where we can see how programming can take shape, and where we can be hacked, and where we can hopefully overcome this program. But as you'll see, it is incredibly deep. It's incredibly deep. And what happens is that over time, we become entrained through a myriad of symbols, through a myriad of songs, through a myriad of influences and emotions and cultural institutions. And that's one layer of programming. It's one big, fat layer. And then there's the individually targeted layer of programming. And that occurs, by the way. People who are generally more alert, alive, aware, conscious, they get targeted. It happened to me. It happened to me in a very big way, starting in 2006. And what happened? My family life got torn apart. So now I'm sitting there at the bar having a margarita watching this other family, which was 2/3 my original family, take shape. It was an odd experience. And I began again to question just who I was and what did I hold true? Was it really my own volition? And if it is or isn't, then what's important now? And how do I go about shifting that? So luckily I've got Pluto here on the ascendant, which will be very interesting for me because it's about transforming the nature of identity. And I am all about that. I've only been here a week and I've had a major revelation. And I'm sure that there's a lot more to come. So let's bring this back now to the election very quickly and talk about the election. First of all, I was very surprised that we did not get a lot more Mercury retrograde feedback. I had a quick exchange this morning with William Stick Evers, the brilliant horary astrologer from New York, and he was also quite surprised that we didn't get a lot of Mercury retrograde blowback. Maybe it's because it was stationary and not fully retrograde. It's retrograde today, and there may be something that will come up around the vote that will come out over the course of the next few weeks. That might be interesting. That might be a sticking point. I can't clearly say that yet. We're in the realm of speculation, but I was very surprised that Mercury retrograde did not play a major role last night. Now, I'd heard about some machines that had their votes changed. I'd heard about some of that, which would be a typical Mercury retrograde experience. But as far as elections go, by the time it gets down to the two candidates, it doesn't really matter. The candidates are used as a wedge to divide people along a number of different lines, mostly ideological. It doesn't really matter. Barack Obama and Mitt Romney were going to carry out the same program with albeit slightly different wrinkles. The one thing I will say about not having Mitt Romney as president is that we won't get a full dose of the neocons. We get the neolibs with Obama, but we won't get the neocons. And that would have been, well, at least it would have been naked. We would have seen the beast up close and personal. Romney already said that he would have hired just about everybody from the Bush administration that can still be employed in Washington, including Michael Chertoff. So we won't get that. And we might get Obama dragging his heels even more on Iran, which would be good. But other than that, they're both going to do the same thing. And what we're talking about here is, and I don't want to sound like a tinfoil guy, but it's clear it's about the dismantling of America as we know it. And there's no way that people can refute that. There's no way at all. And so what we had people voting based on ideology and not about the issues. And the ideology that carried the day for Obama, if we can trust the voting machines, was you can boil it down to four talking points: abortion/women's rights, immigration, gay marriage. Those 3/4 points are what elected or reelected Obama. I'm convinced. People don't really care about things like drone warfare. They don't care about GMOs. They don't care about Obama's relationship to Goldman Sachs and big business. They don't care about Benghazi. They don't care about any of that stuff. All they really care about is those hot button issues. And so what are we talking about? We're talking about programming. People have been programmed to believe that those are the most important things that we as Americans and humans face. And I'll tell you right now, they aren't. They aren't. They're important, but they're not the most important. And so people were voting ideologically and emotionally. I guess that's the way it's always been. But not once in any of the debates did the economy really, really come up. Nobody talked about quantitative easing. Nobody talked about the march of war and the proliferation of the quote-unquote war machine or Syria or anything really like that at a hardcore level. It wasn't talked about. What was talked about were silly issues like binders full of women and Big Bird. And this is what the election was based on. And billions of dollars were spent. And that's the only thing we got out of it. Binders full of women and Big Bird. Nothing, no real content came out of this election. It would have been one thing to go through this charade and have Rothschild candidate 1 and Rothschild candidate 1A go up against each other and have some kind of debate or discussion or soul searching for the country. But none of that came up. None. Big Bird and binders full of women. These will be the things that we will remember about this election and little else. Now, keep in mind that Obama's staff is comprised mostly of Scorpios: Joe Biden, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, and Hillary Clinton are all Scorpios. Saturn will be hitting their suns to various degrees in effect. And the way Saturn works, especially on the sun, is if you are fronting, you will get a karmic comeuppance. If you're not fronting, then you get to work on being wiser, stronger, more magnanimous, more healing, more magnetic, more loving, all those things. And that's the way it goes. The thing about Scorpios is they're tough as nails, and they don't go away easily. So even a Saturn for Libras, even though it's exalted in Libra, right? Saturn going across Venus and going across Mercury or the Moon or the Sun in Libra, that's rough. Libras tend to be, Libras don't like mess. Libras don't like to get ruffled. Saturn ruffles things. Saturn's about compression and gravity. Libras don't like that. So Saturn was a rough run for Libras. Scorpio, it's like, fuck yeah, bring it on. Bring that Saturn on. I'm a Scorpio, Jack. I can handle it. All right, let's do this. Let's take some calls. Let's get into the calls and let's find out what people want to talk about. Quickly, today is Leon Trotsky's birthday. Talk about Scorpion. It's Marie Curie's birthday, Madame Curie. Her birthday as well. The woman who helped create the atomic bomb and was one of the people who discovered plutonium happens to be a Scorpio. Ruled by Pluto. Fascinating, isn't it? All right, let's go to 780. Hello there.
Hey, Robert. Now in Texas now again, eh?
I'm in Texas. Yes, it's every day here in the wintertime. It is paradise. I can only imagine what it's like here in August. I know what it's like here in August. It's quite hot, but right now it's pretty remarkable. How's it going?
Going pretty good. I'm just looking for a job right now. I think I talked to you about that before.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how I was listening to your information regarding the election. Really interesting. Obama's got mostly Scorpios in his cabinet, so really interesting.
We've got 4 Scorpios. Eric Holder is, I think, an Aquarius, and David Axelrod, who is not formally a part of his cabinet per se, David Axelrod, I think, is a Taurus. So there's a lot of fixed energy in his cabinet. So once they make up their mind and go down a path, they don't really deviate all that much.
That's interesting.
What's happening on the job front?
I'm just looking for a job right now. I know Mercury's in retrograde right now, so just looking at I've got a job interview actually tomorrow, which is great. So know what to say about that. So,
is it something that you like, or is it something that's just going to get you over for now?
No, it's something that's different. I'm looking at what I actually do. It's a parts position job, not a technical position job. So it's fine with me. So.
Yeah. One of the things, if you're going to go into a job interview with Mercury retrograde, especially in Sagittarius, and if you're going to be, switching career tracks, what you may want to do is to go back into your own, history and look at skill sets that you may have neglected to consider skill sets, right? Like maybe you were an expert model builder or something like that when you were a kid, or something along those lines. What you want to do with Mercury retrograde, especially since it's in Sagittarius, is you want to do a personal inventory. You want to, because Sagittarius, Leo is the sign of sovereignty, but Sagittarius is the sign of sovereignty. Leo's the sign of sovereignty. Sagittarius is the sign of personal authority, meaning that what you want to do is you want to find like a fundamental truth that is related to who you are. And with Mercury in Sagittarius going retrograde, theoretically it should send people going backwards into their own history to find out things about themselves that they have forgotten or neglected to take notice of, and especially if you're going into a job interview. The other thing you want to do is be really honest with yourself with this Mercury retrograde. It's not going to be in Sagittarius for a while. It's going to go into Scorpio. It'll be Sagittarius for, I think, another week, and then it goes back into Scorpio, and then it becomes a very different kind of exercise and experience. But for now, just try to go back and see where there may be things in your own sort of workbook that you may have not always thought of as a skill, but might be able to somehow extricate and make it more visible on your resume, or if not on your resume, certainly in the interview process.
Okay.
You don't have to do it now, but you can think about it. The other thing too is that one of the things that Mercury retrograde Sagittarius does is like what's true for you, right? What's true for you, what's true for another person, what's true for another person. The retrograde aspect gets us to think about those things as well. So, there's also an element of mining your personal experience about, what's right for you. It's not just about what you can do or what you have kind of glossed over that you might be able to kind of pull up and resurrect and polish, but also like what's right for you, what's true for you. And you may go through this retrograde period not necessarily getting a job, although that might happen. But you certainly will be refining the process with Mercury retrograde so that by the time Mercury does move forward, you'll be much more aligned both in terms of your materials and also in terms of your own sort of inner gestalt about what you want and where you want to take your intention and your focus. So I think it's a good time to go through this process with Mercury retrograde. I would not necessarily be attached to the outcome, but enter into every potential interview process with a sense of, at least during Mercury in Sagittarius, Sagittarius is very optimistic. It's an optimistic sign. So go into this with a sense of optimism. When Mercury moves into Scorpio, it's a different beast altogether. When Mercury's in Scorpio, this is for you, for anybody else that is looking for a job, you want to do a lot of research on the company that you're interviewing with. Normally you want to do that anyway, but if you're in a job interview process with Mercury retrograde Scorpio, you want to know about the company, you want to know about its top 3 competitors, you want to know about who sits on the board. I mean, you want to know everything. And that kind of information is readily available with Mercury and Scorpio retrograde. So, if your interview process continues over the course of the next 3 weeks, you would want to shift that process from being one that's internal with Sagittarius to one that's more external and finding out about who the big players are in terms of where you're interviewing with.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to talk about or get into here?
No, just like I said, applying for a job and just, be optimistic about it. And I got dismissed from my other job because of a workplace bullying thing, and I just got to figure out how to write it down. So it sounds very positive. Yeah.
So what's really interesting too is that when Mercury goes back into Scorpio, you'll be able to revisit that because Scorpio is incredibly psychological, and you'll be able to kind of revisit those dynamics. Of all the signs, I feel like Scorpio is the most shamanic of all the signs because the shamanic journey is the journey into death and rebirth. And so whatever ghosts or demons you haven't exorcised from your dismissal, or your leave of that job, you'll be able to go back in, and with a relative sense of safety because you'll be out of that environment, you can revisit that and figure out ways in which you can cut cords and really be over that experience, so that when you step through the doors of your next experience, you're not a victim to what happened in your last job, that you really have a very clean and fresh start from that point forward. And that's available. All these things like these movements and planets of the stars, number one, they're ciphers, they're symbols, they represent energy vectors, but they set things in motion. And the rest is up to us. So, whether you do it or not consciously doesn't really matter because the conditions will be there with Mercury retrograde Scorpio. Your subconscious will pick up on it. You'll go through things in your dreams. You'll think about it when you're brushing your teeth, stuff like that. And then you have the potential to go through that, get out the other side, Mercury comes back into Sagittarius, and there's a renewed sense of optimism and purpose. So hang in there and let us know how things go.
Sure.
Okay, do you want to be back on hold, or do you want me to just say goodbye here?
Yeah, you better hang up me. You got sunshine down there, we got a foot of snow here, so anyhow.
Okay. So
but anyhow, I'm gonna help the person just shovel snow. So anyhow, thanks so much for the advice.
All right, chop wood, carry water. We'll see you later.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
All right. Okay, so there we go. A little Mercury retrograde talk. Let's go to 804. Hi, thanks for waiting.
Hello, that's okay. I got a lot of time on my hands. It seemed like.
I hope you're.
I don't have. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
I said I hope you're not in prison.
Oh no, not at all. I just haven't worked or anything for a while.
Good. What's your name?
Sometimes I have to spell it. It's Vernell, so it's a V like in Victoria.
Okay. We'll just call you V. How's that? V for victory. Victory, Victoria.
Well, that'll be fine.
Okay. What's on your mind today, V?
Okay. Do you, by any chance, answer relationship questions?
To the best of my ability.
Okay. My boyfriend has been quite distant ever since this past September, and he used to call a lot in the daytime and in the evening when we're not together, and he just haven't been acting like himself. I could always tell over the phone, if something is kind of off.
Right.
So I was wondering if you might be able to tell me what's going on with him, and if it'll work itself out.
Okay. So before we get into the chart, one of the things that I like to do with people is I like to see if they can access their own intuition and their own knowing with some of this stuff. And this is I think a really good opportunity to be able to do that. And I will get to the astrological piece. But I want to ask you, V, when you think about this and you see what's happened, there was a lot of attention being paid to you, morning, noon, and night, and now there's not so much. What is your intuition, and what does your gut say about this?
Well, I think he must be, around some friends that he knows, and that's what I thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, clearly he has shifted his focus and priority from you to being something or someone else. Am I right?
I think so.
Yeah. How often do you see him physically?
Well, actually, we really live a great distance from each other, and like sometimes, it used to be like sometimes he would go out of his way to, make sure that he used to stay here sometimes, and then I would stay at his place, and he's supposed to be on disability,
mm-hmm.
and he would go out of his way even though he knows he didn't have to do things for me, on the financial level, and I don't really miss that because that's not why, I want to be with him.
Sure.
But he would go out of his way to do things for me, get a cab and come and get me or whatever, and do other things for me too.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was saying, well, because he lives in public housing, he has to be careful about having people over because by the rules there, they're not allowed to have other people staying there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be in a part complex for the disabled under, public housing. And but he managed to have me there quite a bit of times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said he was.
Okay. All right. So he is withdrawn a level of interest from you, and
Mm-hmm.
not only that, but he lives in another state, which makes it harder to see. Right.
Not really in another state, but he's like I'm in Virginia. I'm in the central part of Virginia, and he's kind of near the coast of Virginia.
Okay. All right. So he's not local though.
Right.
Okay. All right. All right. So when is your birthday?
Okay, my birthday is May 8th, 1963.
So you are a Taurus. And when is his birthday?
It's May 18th, 1958.
Okay, so he is also a Taurus as well.
Yes.
Let me just go quickly to his chart. May 18th, 1958?
Yes.
All right. All righty. So I'm looking at May 18th, 1958. And it looks to me like he has Moon in Taurus and Sun in Taurus. He also has Mercury in Taurus, very heavily Taurus. So obviously there would be a connection and attraction with your sun sign and his moon sign, Mercury. Here's the problem, though, with all that Taurus, okay? When there is a desire to connect with a person and be a part of a person's life and be romantic and do all that stuff, you can get a steady wave of that with all that Taurus. That means they're into you. When it stops, it generally means that, and I want to say this in the most loving way, that they're not as into you as before. And the reason is because Taurus is a fixed sign. And once they make up their mind, and in his case, not just his mind, but his emotions with the moon and his solar expression with the sun, then he has changed course. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's mutable. If those were mutable planets, he might, flip-flop and go back and forth and back and forth. He'd be into you, not into you. He would be there, not there, be hot and cold. The one thing you would always be able to predict on is kind of the unpredictability of the experience. But with those fixed signs, to me, the lack of communication signifies that he has had a change of mind and a change of emotion, that there's something that he's not, that because it's Taurus, there's a clear line in the sand. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that he may not move back, but the chances are, I would say, far less than they would be if he would. The other thing is that right now the South Node is on his sun, which means that in his own way, he would be having some form of an identity crisis. Okay? And what happens with people that have identity crisis is that if they feel like they've been lost or they have part of themselves invested in a relationship, in order to get clear on themselves, they will generally cut the relationship out. So there is a question of kind of who he is right now. There's also some issues around his body with the South Node on his sun. The part of what he would also be experiencing would be related to either his health or his body. He has Venus in Aries. And I would say for anybody who gets involved with somebody that has Venus in Aries, you need to be aware of the fact that this person has to have a high level of stimulation and to stay engaged with them in a very active way, or else they will seek a high level of stimulation with somebody else. Venus is in its fall in Aries. And people that have Venus in Aries are constantly looking to have some kind of connection with people around them. Notice I use the word around them. And if you're not around him, then that Venus in Aries gets worked out somewhere else. I'm not saying that you can't be in relationship with somebody with Venus in Aries. It's just there needs to be more hands-on. There needs to be more active participation in the relationship. And if you're not there locally to do that, Venus in Aries will go find somebody else to have that level of activity with, okay? And that's not your fault. It's just the nature of Venus in Aries. Aries is it's a cardinal sign. It initiates, and Venus is all about relationship, right? So it's about the individual being the initiator in relationship. And if you're not there, then I hate to say this, but they will initiate relationship and have activity and recreation with someone else. He also has Mars in Pisces, and Mars in Pisces can be classically unreliable, and that doesn't mean that he's not there for you or could be there for you. It's just Mars is not in its strongest place in Pisces. He does have Jupiter in Libra. It's retrograde though, and what people that have Jupiter in Libra, anything that's associated with Libra, whether it was Mars or Venus or even Mercury to a certain extent, but certainly Venus and Mars, is that they will tend to have a history of going back to a relationship once it's over. Okay, so kind of based on all of this, with the fixity, with Venus in Aries, Mars in Pisces, Jupiter retrograde Libra, the best way to get him back into your life is to break up with him. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's true. You know,
I'd rather you tell me the truth than tell me a lie, because honesty is, more important to me.
Yeah.
Which is actually why I'm calling you.
Yeah. So here's what you do: if you want him back, and you don't really want him back under these conditions, but break up with him. You break up with him, he'll come back. That's Jupiter retrograde Libra.
Uh-huh.
Trust me on this. Now, personally, if I were you, you're a Taurus. Taurus likes consistency. It is an earth sign. It's a fixed earth sign. You don't do well with ambient, out-of-town relationships. You need to have somebody come over to your house 2-3 times a week. You need somebody to take you out to dinner. These are things that are really important for Taurus, really, really important. And because you were born, May 8th, is that right?
Right.
Okay. So Saturn is going to be opposing your sun here soon. And what's going to happen with Saturn opposing your sun is that you're going to really understand what's important to you at a really fundamental, basic psychological level. Okay? So what I would lovingly advocate for you as a Taurus is to, number one, find somebody that's near you. Okay? That's really important. Number two, find somebody who is not only near you, but will pay attention to you and will spend consistent time with you. Sometimes, like if you're an Aquarius, Aquarians don't need a lot of consistent time. They need check-in time. They can chat on Skype or whatever, and sometimes that's enough for an Aquarian. But you're not an Aquarian. You're a Taurus. You need physical contact. You need somebody to hold your hand, somebody to feel it up against you in bed at night, to feel their body. You're a tactile person, and having somebody halfway across the state is not a good recipe for a Taurus. Trust me.
Yeah. And usually, I'll admit I read this article about other women who said that Taurus men are not reliable and that they're very flirty and even if they're already in a relationship, they're gonna go after other women anyway. And he seemed to, like, whenever he's around me and we can go to the store or something, and I would see him. Every time another female girl across his path, he acts like he gets excited or something. And so guys like him are not really the reliable type. Am I right about that?
Well, Taurus males can be very reliable. The thing, like what I would call kind of an enlightened Taurus male would be somebody who knows the importance and power of stability and a really loving and nurturing person in their lives. And if they get that, and they really get that, then they will be with that person for life, and they will excel. The problem with the Taurus male, if they if they stray too much, then what happens is that they're not going to get what they need, and what they need is kind of what you need, which is stability, a sense of emotional connection, and nurturing, and good food, and a nice house, and steady sex. These are all important things for a Taurus individual, and when they have that on a consistent basis, they will absolutely soar. And if they're moving around from person to person, they won't get that, and it won't work for them, and they'll be cheating themselves. They'll be cheating the other person, and they'll be cheating themselves. I would be more concerned about Venus and Aries in his chart than those 3 Taurus planets. That's what I would be a little more concerned about. Listen, you find somebody local, okay? You find somebody local. You find somebody consistent. You find somebody that will be there for you, and trust me, your life will change in a very powerful way, okay? Saturn's coming up. It's going to be opposing your sun. So these are all, items and topics that you'll be thinking a lot more about in the weeks and the months to come. All right?
Yeah, I'm kind of already starting to, feel my change in attitude about things, actually.
Well, good. Break up with him, and I guarantee you he'll come running back. It's that Jupiter retrograde Libra, but don't take him back. Let him hang out. Let him hang out in the pasture and munch on some weeds for a while. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sure will.
All right, G. You take good care of yourself. All right. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Thank you for the detail reading.
All right. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Man, I think her guy is fronting her with a lot of bull. Get it? Bull, Taurus. All right, let's go on to the next call. Hey there, what's going on? Hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, thanks for waiting. It's your time.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, this is Ann from Virginia Beach.
Oh, hi, Ann.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of getting into a groove here. What's up?
Oh, I just called in to see if you have anything good to tell me. My whole life is blowing up.
Oh.
I had an October that just blew everything up financially. Just a lot of expenses, big ticket items, one after the other, and I'm hoping that the winds will change. And
so these ticket items, were they essential, or did you just decide one night to go to Walmart to rip?
No. I didn't decide anything. They just came at me like taxes, storm damage, trees falling on houses,
yeah,
trees dying that the city wants me to cut down. It's just things from the outside, and they're all big ticket things.
So life happened to you with these big ticket items?
I think I've got them under control, but I went through a lot of stress. But
well,
now
this happens sometimes, and these things tend to happen in cycles too. There's outlays of cash, and then they're like waves. When's your birthday?
May 1st. I'm a Taurus.
More Taurus.
Yeah, I'm a Taurus with a Pisces ascendant. You did my chart.
Yeah, let's see. Let me go in here. Let's do a quick chart for you.
I guess what I'm wanting to ask you is there anything going to change direction? Is there a wind coming with new energy that's going to take me somewhere different?
Well, yes.
There is?
Yes. There always is. So what's happening now, though? So the big ticket item for you is Saturn right now in your 8th house, and it's currently just moved off your natal Neptune. You have Neptune at 0 degrees Scorpio. So, part of the money thing is an 8th house issue. So what happened is that as Saturn approached Neptune, because Saturn's been in your 8th house since it's been at right around 18 degrees Libra. So you've had Saturn in there, and the 8th house is outlays of cash. It's other people's money. It's, having to pay for things like trees, which are physical aspects, which would occupy your 2nd house, where all that Taurus is. So part of what Saturn, now it's changing, but the change is going to happen at a deep level because that's the 8th house. That's the magic of the 8th house. And I would say that the quote unquote the worst of it is over. Okay.
Oh God.
Now Saturn, you have the true node in Scorpio. All right. So what we have right now is that Scorpio. I think the true node is at like 26 degrees, and it's moving towards your own true node, which is pretty cool. So you're going to have a true node conjunction here. Let's just find out the exact time that's going to be taking place. All right, so your true node is at 19 degrees, and we want to go to where 19 degrees.
And by the way, Robert, you were dead on because you told me that I would be very surprised at how people act around money and legacies, and I experienced that, and I was like dumbfounded because that happened in October.
Oh, interesting.
That's already happened.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So 16 degrees. We're talking May, okay? May of 2013. You're going to have the return. It's like a true node return, and that's a really powerful return, especially for you because it's going to be in the 8th house. It's going to be in Scorpio, and then it's really kind of setting the stage for Saturn to hit your true node. And part of the magic of the 8th house is that it happens at a very, very deep level. So we're talking at a psychological level, at a subconscious level, and you get to have the opportunity of remembering who you are at a very fundamental and very prime level. For a lot of people, or for people that would have that experience, there would be kind of a resurgence of strength, a resurgence of focus, a resurgence of purpose, and it wouldn't necessarily come from any place outside of you. It would come from deep within you, almost as if you would be waking up from a dream. And part of what Scorpio does is there's no gray area with Scorpio. It's all very black and white. So the moment that it actually would hit your true node, when the true node would hit your true node, it would be almost like a satori, an experience of satori, where you would just get it. And as a result, there would be changes, real drastic changes with how you deal with certain people in your life. Like there would be people that would no longer be in your life. They're just gone, done. There would be habits that maybe would be lingering. Like say maybe you like to eat half a pint of Ben & Jerry's each night before you go to bed. That would be gone, done. It would be really, drastic and clear change almost overnight. And with that would be like, I get it. I know who I am. I'm figuring this out. No, I figured it out. That's the real change that's coming your way. And what's interesting is that you've got all those planets in Taurus in your 2nd house. So this will have not only an impact on you at a deep psychological level, but will also have an impact on you on a physical level with all those Taurus planets in the 2nd house. And I would bet my position as an astrologer that the money that went out during those outlays when Saturn was coming up through your 8th house, that it returns to you. And it may not return to you in the same way that you put it out there, but you're going to get that money back. And because that's a function of the 8th house as well. How you get that back, I don't really know. Seems to me like somebody repays you a loan. Somebody actually gives you something back during that time. And it's important, too, I think, because it has something to do with this notion of remembering who you are. And so somebody returns something to you that was fundamentally yours to begin with anyway, and you get it back. And that's an important piece for you. I don't know what that is, but it seems like it has to do with family. So, and that's coming. That's May of 2013. You've got that to look forward to. And then Saturn eventually comes up on that true node at 16 degrees, and that's in November of next year, a year from now, when Saturn hits your north node. That's another very powerful aspect. And it seems to me like it is a kind of because in May, right, that's your birth month, right? May, because you're a Taurus, right?
Right.
Yeah, so May, it's this May-November cycle. It's a 6-month cycle. So it starts in May and it culminates in November of next year. Very profound time for you, and there's a lot of beginnings and endings. And the beginnings, I think, are they're very magical, and in some ways, beginnings that you've been working towards your entire life. So you've got that to look forward to.
But in the meantime, nothing till May is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I would say right now, because of where we are in terms of the Saturn cycle going through your 8th house, which is a lot of deep work. You cannot evade the deep work with Saturn, especially as it's going through your 8th house. And then we've got this whole notion again of the South Node crossing ultimately into your 2nd house and dealing with all of your personal Taurus planets. That's going to be more about refining. Okay, so the winds of change are going to be more like breezes of change.
Oh, okay.
But in May of next year, trust me, in May of next year, the amount of time that it takes for you to really experience what I think you're looking for in terms of a profound transformation, it will happen. And it will happen in a very big way. And there will be no looking back for you from that point forward. So, sometimes, we're using kind of an aquatic analogy for astrology. Sometimes, if the winds are down, you've got to make do with the wind being down. And you still have to sail your boat and find little, patches of wind every now and then. But I guarantee you, May of next year, you better have your ship in shape, because you're really going to take off. So just be ready for that.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, Ann, don't be a stranger. We'll see you around.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's go to David in my neck of the woods. What's going on, David?
Hey, man, what's happening?
I'm just kicking it right here in sunny Austin.
You sound like you're right next door.
Who knows? I might be. Where do you live?
South.
I live in South Austin too.
Central Market.
I'm not that. I'm a little further west than that.
Westlake Hills.
I'm in the Oak Hill.
Oh, okay. 71. Hey, you're not that far from me.
71290Y, man. That's where I'm hanging my hat these days.
Yeah, you're about 8 minutes away from me.
Well, how about that? So I am almost next door.
Yes.
I know Central Market. I passed over it on the 290.
Man, I've been waiting for you to call me.
Dude, let me give you a snapshot of my life since I got here. Okay, I got here on the full moon, the Taurus full moon, which was 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks on Sunday. And so I got here, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm cool. I got my apartment and everything. I'm down in this apartment. It's the shittiest apartment in the complex. And the reason why they rented it to me is because I wasn't here to look at it. I'm like, I got this thing out of state, right? I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I just got in. So the apartment that they gave me, it's on the bottom floor, which I did request, by the way, because I didn't want to move a bunch of stuff up to the top floor, which ultimately I had to do anyway. But I gave me this apartment. It's on the bottom floor, and it looks out across from the laundry room. And the laundry room is lit 24/7. So I've got all this light in my apartment at night. And so I've got to shut all the blinds, okay? Not only that, but the apartment above me has 3 dogs, and this place has a 100-pound limit on dogs. I'm not sure why they stopped at dogs. Maybe they should have allowed ponies and goats here as well. And these 3 dogs and they're outdoor dogs. They're not lap dogs. One's a Catahoula, another's like a pit bull mix, the other's a Weimaraner puppy, about maybe 6 months old. And these dogs are running back and forth on top of my apartment day and night, and then they start to bark at night. And I mean bark loud. 1 o'clock in the morning, the dog barks. And I'm seething. I'm pissed. I'm yelling at him to shut up. And so then I have to go to the office and say, hey, look, I need a different place. This is not working for me. So I literally had to move again, Dave. I had to move from that apartment up to the apartment 2 levels up. And people say, oh, what's up with that? Well, I got way too much stuff. So I've had to move twice since I've been here. And it's a long story about why I haven't called you. I literally just got online today. I literally got on it's like today is really my first full-fledged day in Austin, based on all my stuff being around me, based on having my internet connection, and I will call you after the show. How does that sound?
That's great, man.
Yeah, we'll hook up after the show. How are you doing?
You know, I'm doing just like everybody else. I'm trying to make sense of this nonsense.
Well, you know, you just have to let go sometimes, man. And
well, you know what I wanted to ask you today, and I'm glad we're just talking, because I'm kind of coming to the conclusion right at this moment, and I've been thinking this for a while, but I'm kind of wondering if when we look in the sky, if we're actually seeing a pre-programmed sky.
Well,
I'm kind of getting to the point to really, I don't believe anything. It's just kind of funny. I spent the weekend with these, God, I wish I'd known you were here. They had a Hollow Earth tour on Sunday here. They call it Ascension 2012 or something.
Yeah.
And this fella from claimed that he was born in Hollow Earth. He was 1,800 years old. And big long story. Used to work at Area 51. And you know, as strange as the strangest stuff you can find is, there's always sense about it. And one sensical thing that he said that was very simple, he said the sun's not hot. And, you know, well, we get in a plane and we fly through the sky, and there's reasons why it's cold at 30,000 feet and we can feel the sun on Earth. But it really made sense to me when he was saying that the sun, that's not really what it looks. You can walk on the sun.
Yes.
And I guess you already vibed to this, but for me it's just I'm realizing deeply that nothing here is real.
Yeah, which I tell you, you make a really interesting point about the sun, and it's something that I've been exploring over the last couple of years. And if you think about it, right, so the whole notion is that the heat for the planet is generated from the inside of the planet, right, the inner sun, and that the sun itself is actually not hot at all. And if you go, I mean, theoretically, if you would go to, say, you know, Mount Kailash or, you know, or any of the great mountains, Mount Olympus, any of the great mountains, Mount Shasta, the higher you go, the colder it gets. And, you know, logically, you would think that the closer to the sun that you get, the warmer it would get. But that's not the case. It actually gets colder the closer you get. So the further away you move from the heat of the inner sun, you know, the colder it gets. Now, if you ascribe, or anybody ascribes to this notion of the electric universe, which I think is a very interesting theory, by the way, the sun is not hot, but it's electric, right? It actually throws off something very different than heat. And there are videos of comets and how comets relate to the sun based on this whole electric universe theory. It turns the whole notion of comets upside down and inside out, that comets aren't really these giant balls of gas and space debris moving through space, that they're actually electrical sparks moving through space. And there's this one video, I think it's of Lovejoy, or I think it's Lovejoy, Comet Lovejoy. You can go on YouTube and you can see this thing. It actually goes through the sun. It goes through the sun. And what it does is it blows up the whole notion of comets and the sun. Now, if the sun was that intense and that hot and all that stuff, and the comet was filled with, ice and dust and space dirt, that it would literally melt before it got to the sun. But not only does it not melt, it goes through the other side. So it explodes the notion of what the sun is. Now, as far as the sky itself being like a hologram or a program, that's entirely possible. That is entirely possible, because when you look at what happened with Kubrick and the moon landings and all the stuff that Jay Weidner has done, it makes total sense to me that that version of the moon landing was shot on Earth.
Do you remember the name Steve Stevens? He was I believe that was his name. He's an ex-forecaster, weather forecaster that kind of got the drift of this. I was listening to a YouTube of him a couple weeks ago, and he was saying exactly. He said our atmosphere is squashed down on us, and it's a pre-programmed scene we're seeing. And he's a mainstream kind of guy. He was saying this.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened 5 years ago when I heard him say that or something, but man, this stuff is showing up. Well, so Obama, how did Obama, gosh, how can anybody believe that we voted for Obama and he's the president?
Well, he can't. He can't. I mean, the whole notion of voting machines is that's another subject entirely in terms of flipping.
Yeah, I hate to jump from place to place, but it's the same thing, there's nothing real here.
Well, I'll tell you, here's I'm gonna be writing about this on the website, but one of the things that I want to talk about, and I'll talk a little bit about it today, but I'm definitely going to write about it on the website, is there's this guy named Ed Shiriani who goes by the name of Dallas Goldbug, and he does a lot of stuff with forensics and lining up people that look like other people. Some of his stuff, like he got into the whole Gabrielle Giffords thing, and he found kind of this group of people that were playing multiple characters in the Gabrielle Giffords shooting. And he does such a convincing job with this that it's mind-blowing. It's like the people that show up as witnesses, the people that show up as the medevacs, the people that, they're all the same people.
And one of these, the vice president's wife's one of these people, isn't it?
Well, apparently, according to him, the vice president's actually Jimmy Page. Okay, so now what's fascinating about his stuff, like I think the Gabrielle Giffords material is spot on, absolutely and utterly spot on. Okay, I think he nails that. I think he hits it out of the park. He also, I think, hits the Columbine stuff out of the park, and he basically says that Dylan Klebold and Harris are Matt Stone and Trey Parker, and that the whole trenchcoat mafia was their idea, and that they're and they went to Columbine. Okay, so and he gets down into the forensics of what happened there and the lack of blood and all kinds of fascinating stuff. I think he hits it out of the park. But there's other stuff that he does that I just shake my head at. Like he said that John Fox, who's the coach of the Denver Broncos, he said that John Fox was Andrew Breitbart. I find that very hard to believe. Okay, John Fox is a lifelong football coach. Andrew Breitbart grew up in Southern California. There's all kinds of records on Andrew Breitbart. So there's stuff that he has. Jimmy Page is Joe Biden. They look alike, but I'm not sure if Jimmy Page is Joe Biden. So, but what it says here to me is that this whole notion of what's real, who's real, what the players are, I find it It's a big question, and I think we need to stare this thing down because, reality is really not what it seems at all. In fact, far from it. It's anything but reality.
Well, it just brings me right here to where I stand. It's like, what am I about? What am I here for? Am I a victim? Am I an obscure object here? Am I the clone? What am I?
Well, I think that's an existential question that we all have to ask ourselves. When I was sitting down at Santa Rita having a margarita and having my kid and his mom and her fiance sitting at that table 20 feet away from me living their life. And by the way, this never happened in California. I had to move 1,800 miles to run into them and have this social experience.
Yeah.
And then I read this whole thing about the programming via Disney, and that moment for me lined up almost exactly in terms of a very specific type of programming that is meted out to people through this whole kind of MK Ultra Disney factory, that my life lined up like that. I had to ask what was really going on there. Was I caught in some sort of ambient net of programming, or was this my own programming? And who did the programming? Was I doing the programming? Right? I mean, so I understand where you're coming from, and I get into these things for brief periods of time, and then I pull back and I get into some other stuff because it's one of those things that Shakespeare talked about with Hamlet, where you can absolutely go mad when you try to untangle the nature of reality.
Well, for me, it's not the nature of reality. It's I can remember that I'm a wizard.
Uh-huh.
I can remember that I've made things happen,
right.
And I've done it here. But is there mechanics to it? I believe there is, but sometimes I just can't believe there is, the way things are showing up in this world. If there's a mechanics to it, why are we so subservient to this thing?
Well, it's funny. I was watching this movie last night, which I was going to talk about. It's called The Clairvoyant, and it was on Netflix, and the title of it really grabbed me. And it was fascinating. It was from 1934. It's a black and white film. It's a really, really well done movie. And Claude Rains, who would later play the Invisible Man, and Fay Wray, who would later play the gal in King Kong, they're the love interest in this movie. They're husband and wife. And he is like a charlatan clairvoyant. And he has this act that he does with her. And she's got all these little sayings like, do you know what I'm currently holding in my hand? And that would be code for him that it would be a pen. So she would have all these phrases, and then he would pick up on them, and it would appear as though he knew exactly what she had, even though he was blindfolded. Well, what happens is that a woman enters into his life, and for some reason, he has a mystical relationship with this woman, and he has the ability to have prophecy. But it's not his wife. And there's really these interesting threads going on. And if he's away from this woman, he does not have the gift of true prophecy. But when he's with her, the magic or the mechanics of it happen. And he doesn't really know how or why. It's a fascinating film for 1934. And of course, it's tied up in a very neat and sort of moral ending. He eschews the love interest from this other woman, who is really his alchemical bride and his muse. And what he does is he stays with his traditional wife and then walks away from his prophetic calling. It's a fascinating movie, but it speaks to what you're talking about in some ways. And maybe the key for you is to go find your muse, Dave.
Well, there's probably more truth to that than we even can imagine. But these Hollow Earth people, they seem to to hit on some very, very valid points. But there again, you remember I had a relationship with Sheldon Neidl years ago, and one of the first things he told me was exactly what they told me on Sunday again, and they pretty much brought it down to the day that 12/21/12 here these ships are going to show up, and you're either going to go to back where you came from, you're going to go to inner Earth, or you're going to go to hollow Earth. And I just kind of thought it was amazing with all the information that they told me that I kind of could resonate with, you know, that they had this total belief that this was going to happen, and it's the same thing Sheldon told me. And somebody asked him and said, well, what happens to these buildings? And he said, well, they just melt down. You know,
yeah. There's
the Earth is replenished, and in hollow Earth there's trees that's like 3,000-4,000 feet tall.
Right.
That's reality. He says. He says on the planet, when we're brought back here, this is the new Earth, and it'll be like that.
Well, there's a movie called Dark City. It was directed by Alex Proyas, which came out around the same time as The Matrix, and I actually kind of like it a little bit better than The Matrix. I recommend people see the movie because it also talks. It's a lot like what you're saying, and there's a whole notion of hollow Earth, although the Earth isn't really hollow in Dark City. It's actually a very different kind of civilization. Hey, listen, Dave, let me call you after the show, okay? We'll talk some more.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, Dave in Austin. There we go. Let's get into the 714. Hey there, thanks for calling in. Hello?
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks.
Good. Well, what's your name?
My name is Carlos.
Hey, Carlos, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from California.
All right, my old stomping grounds, California. There are things about California I do miss. I will say that. Although I don't miss the fact that California voted like crazy for Obama, but couldn't seem to wrap their head around labeling genetically modified organisms in food. That just mystifies me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a bit odd.
It is very odd. And then you begin to think about this whole notion around voting machines, and the mind takes a cynical turn. What do you want to talk about today, Carlos?
Well, I would like to see if you could give me some info on what's going on with my chart.
Okay. When's your birthday?
It's 12/28/1985.
All right, let's go here. Let's do a quick chart for you. All right. Which city in California are you calling from?
San Marcos.
I used to live in Escondido.
Oh, really? That's right next door.
Yeah, man. It's funny. When I first got to Escondido, I really didn't know what to think of it. But I actually wound up liking it a lot. It took me about a year, and once I got into the groove there, I dug it. I dug it a lot. All right. So 12/28. Is that what you said?
Right.
Okay. And what was the year again? I'm sorry.
1985.
1985. All right. You're Pluto and Scorpio. What time were you born?
12:43 a.m.
All right. 12:43 a.m. All right. And were you born in San Marcos?
I was born in Tustin, California.
Tustin. Yes, I know Tustin. There it is. All right. Christian Hosoi is from that area. Do you know him?
I do not.
He's a skater. Man, you got a trippy chart. You've got total Zen chart. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets all in the third house. Very few angles between planets. You have one square. Actually you have two. One is between the moon and your ascendant, and the other is with Mars and Jupiter. Other than that, you have no squares. And you have oppositions. The only oppositions you have are between Pluto and your true node, and Mars and your true node, and then you got a bunch of oppositions between Chiron and Neptune, Saturn, and Mercury. Very, very unusual chart. When I see a chart like this, and there is a marked focus in terms of clustering of planets and a house, you really came here for a very, very specific reason. All those planets from the third house, which is the house of communication, learning, teaching. When I say teaching, it's not necessarily teaching like at a college or university, but teaching anywhere from like grades K through high school, or teaching along the lines of like individual classes, small groups, small seminars, things like that. A lot of writing ability with Mercury, especially Mercury conjunct Uranus down there in the third house. You might have a little bit of a challenge with attention span because of this very, very tight conjunction with Mercury and Uranus, and especially them being in the third house. But if you can lock in and really focus, you could actually write some really, really interesting stuff. You've got Neptune down there, Neptune conjunct Venus, also in the third house, Sun in the third house. Like if you don't write with your life, I think you're missing a big opportunity. And for some people, the third house would be considered like the house of journalism, but because you have some very imaginative planets there, like Neptune and Uranus, you'd be very, very good at fiction and possibly even science fiction or fantasy. These would be realms that you could do quite well in terms of writing. So, and with Sun in Cancer, you would also be. You have the same birthday as John Smith, by the way, the guy who started Mormonism. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so you John Smith share the same birthday. With Sun in Capricorn, you would take everything that you do very seriously. So if you set out to do something like write or teach, that you'd be quite good at it, and you would make it a kind of a lifelong work. The other thing you've got going on is you've got Mars and Pluto, both of which are conjunct in Scorpio, and the conjunction is almost exact. Mars is at 8 degrees, Pluto is at 6 degrees. So, and they're in your first house, which makes you super, super intense. And again, you've got a nice Libra ascendant, which sort of takes off a little bit of that intense edge. You know, there's a polite side to you, there's a nice side to you, there's a side that mediates. But if you go beneath the surface, there's a real intensity with you. And sometimes people may view you as being, kind of this really cool, get along, mellow guy. But if you're pressed on certain things, you will push back, and you'll push back hard. And people will be surprised at times with the level of intensity that you can display. And with Mars, Pluto in the first house conjunct in Scorpio, you have the ability to manifest very intensely and quickly. And right now, Pluto is on your, so check this out, Pluto is on your Sun in the third house, and then you've got Saturn on your Pluto, or getting ready to be close to your Pluto within the next couple of weeks. It'll be right on your Pluto by the time we get to December. So you're going to have a Pluto-Sun conjunction, and then a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And normally, when Saturn crosses Pluto in the individual's chart, it's a really, really big change. And because Pluto's a mutual reception with the Sun, the change will be quite favorable and harmonious and not jarring or intense. So one of the things, because you're part of the Pluto and Scorpio generation, one of the things that you will be focusing on in this lifetime, and I'm talking about the rest of this lifetime, is the application of power. Like you need to be, you have a lot of responsibility with Pluto and Scorpio and Mars and Scorpio in the first house. And part of what Saturn is going to do over the course of the next 2.5 years is it's going to get you in touch with that. So you'll, what you would do with Pluto and Mars in the first house is you'd push the envelope a lot. You would test your power. There's a lot of occult power in that Pluto-Mars conjunction. There's a lot of ability to attract what you want, or attract people that you want, or people that you need. And you might even be surprised with the ease which you can do that. Saturn on your Pluto is going to make you feel much more responsible and accountable for that. And some of the ways that manifests is by sort of getting what you want and then dealing with that, right? Like you asked for it, you wanted it, and then it comes at you and you're like, wow, I really wasn't prepared to have this kind of experience. You know, it might be getting a lover that you really desired, and all of a sudden the lover turns out to be a psychopath. You know what I mean? So
right.
that would be kind of learning from your ability to manifest. And Saturn would say, okay, well, what can I do with this? How can I make this an experience that is manageable, that I can learn from, that, you know, that helps me grow, brings me wisdom, but also doesn't necessarily turn my world inside out and upside down. It's about being accountable steward with power, and you're going to learn that. That's going to be a really big and fundamental piece for you. The other thing too, when Saturn moves over Pluto, especially in Scorpio in the first house, I don't know what your social life is like, but you know, you're going to really focus on yourself more than ever before. And that means that people that might have been important to you, or relationships might have been important to you, they'll go away. Like, they're not going to mean as much. What's going to really be first and foremost for you is really finding out like who you are and what you can do with your energy in this lifetime. And next 2.5 years are going to be a big piece of around that for you. The other thing with Saturn on Pluto in the first house is that, again, like habits and attitudes and things that you've taken for granted will be challenged, and you'll drop some of those. Like if you smoke, you'll stop smoking, things like that. In terms of your like love life, you know, romance, you're a very giving guy. You've got Moon in Cancer, so you've got a great ability to connect emotionally. The problem with that Moon is that it's stranded up there alone, up in the 10th house, and it really doesn't do much in terms of your chart. So part of what your quest here in this lifetime is to it's to find your heart, you know, to find something that kind of moves you emotionally. But a lot of times you're going to feel alone with that. And what I would do is, because it's in your 10th house, I would try to make this into some form of a career path. I would say that if you can work with women, that would be a real bonus for you and a real boon for you. And anything that can help you out in terms of like emotional healing, like for instance, with all this third house stuff, you know, if you wanted to write and not write fiction material or not write something along those lines, that you could really get into this whole notion of like healing and healing the body, healing the mind, emotional healing, and then you could somehow, you know, manage that through the Moon up in the 10th house, and you know, share that kind of with the world, and somehow try to connect those two. I mean, your Sun does not oppose your Moon because it's too far away, but there's something about that Moon. There's a loneliness with that Moon in Cancer and a questing with that Moon. But if you can work with women, that will alleviate or a lot of that. So you got a lot going on here, man, and the next few months are going to be very interesting for you. Very, very interesting. You're going to be leaving things behind that are no longer useful for you in any way, shape, or form.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, you're intense, you know.
Very true.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Carlos, I'm going to shove off and try to get a couple more readings in here, okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling in, man. See you.
Take care.
All right. It is 1:40 here in sunny Central Texas. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix, your guide today. Let's try to squeeze in a couple more readings. Let's go to the 808. Hi there.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Your conversation's been really interesting this morning. I appreciate it, about the sun and the inner earth and all that. And sorry about your experience with your apartment in Texas.
Oh, it's all good. You know, it's just an opportunity for me to, you know, reset my life in a way that's meaningful. But thank you. So, what's your name?
My name's Sandra, and it's about kind of like a relationship. I've already made my decision to move, and I'm with a person who I've done some research on and realized I'm with a narcissist. I've never met one before. And I need to get out of this situation because I feel, you know, it's just toxic.
What sign are they?
They're Gemini.
Gemini, okay.
Yes. And I'm Pisces Aries. I was born on the cusp of Pisces and Aries, March 21st.
All right.
March 21st? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, March 21st. Okay, let's look at you real quickly here.
Okay.
Let's see what you got going on here. Since we're pressed for time, I'm just going to look at a solar chart. March 21st, what year?
1948. And the day I was born was 9 o'clock in the morning.
All right, let's just look at the solar chart here. 1948, March 21st.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you are the year of the rat.
Yes, I am.
All right. And looks to me like so are you an Aries?
I feel more like a Pisces. I've never really, I'm Aries as far as being independent and I take action, but I feel more like a Pisces in a spiritual place, spiritual level and emotional level.
Yeah. So let's go back to this notion of the narcissist. You know, you've got Venus in Taurus, right? And and Venus, like this goes back to the earlier conversation that I had with who was Taurus. And again, you know, people that have any planet in Taurus, especially Venus, they need consistency on a bodily level, and they need consistency on a love level. And people that have Venus and Taurus are actually quite giving. But once they've figured out that the person that they're with is taking more than they're giving, then they will cut them off. They will draw the line and they will cut them off, and there's no looking back on that. So the narcissist forced you to get to that place, and when you say you've made up your mind, then I believe you, and you are ready to move on from that. So I applaud you for that. The thing about narcissism is it's really kind of tricky in that narcissism gets into this whole arena of selfishness, right, and being self-centered. And I think that there is a healthy form of narcissism that is about kind of honoring things that are important to sustain the individual, but when it's out of balance, that's when it does become a problem. And narcissists tend to be people that are not having other needs met in their lives in other places. And so what happens is that they adopt these narcissistic attitudes, and then they wind up sucking more energy away from people than they're giving, and that gets problematic. And if he's a Gemini, then he's going to be going through the Jupiter Gemini retrograde experience. So all Geminis right now are having to kind of reassess their identity with this Jupiter retrograde Gemini. And so by your pulling away and you're cutting him off, it will probably facilitate him kind of re-examining himself. The challenge with Gemini, though, is that they don't always, like, they may find it interesting and they may find it factually accurate, but it may not necessarily change them, because Gemini have a unique capacity to experience themselves from a kind of an objective place and not really change their lives. But what they would do is find some activity or some hobby or something to kind of express that change or express that observation. So it would be kind of like, you know, writing a third-person diary. That's what they would do, right? That they would objectify it. They would have a third-person diary, and it would exist in that form and not even really change their lives. But they would turn it in a way that would be, I don't know, maybe useful to them, interesting to them, novel to them, but not. And I know, and I don't want to cast an aspersion on all Geminis, but they have a very different way of observing themselves and changing themselves. They don't really change per se. They change what they do. They don't really change what they do. They change how they kind of interact with their own dysfunction. Does that make sense?
Yes, it is. That's what he's been doing, and I realize he's not changing inside. And he's kind of adjusts to me, but he goes right back to the same thing again. And it's toxic to me, and I'm draining to deal with it. And he's expecting me to be romantic, and I've talked to him and told him how I felt. I don't feel romantic anymore. You know? Yeah. I just want to get my life back. I didn't know I was with a narcissist. They give you all their attention at first, and then I moved in with him. It's probably too soon, and he turned into my parent a few weeks later. He's been my parent ever since. It's been 3 months now. He's constantly giving me orders, and I'm always doing something wrong.
Oh, you don't need that.
He wants me to be romantic too, And
Venus and Taurus, you don't need that. You'll run from that. Look, you have Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is opposite as Gemini. And the thing with Jupiter and Sagittarius, especially at that degree, it's at 27 degrees, which is conjunct the galactic center, is that you have no desire to put up with bullshit. And people that have Jupiter and Sagittarius at that degree, you will call for what you see it, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. I've done it, but he's not hearing me. Now I have to move out now, and I'm concerned for my safety now. I'm not sure where to go. I don't have a lot of money for deposits and all that, but I need to get out. I'm looking at shelters or possibly dorm-style living, but I just want to know if I try to move out and talk to him and then take my time to move out, will I be putting myself in danger?
Well, here's what I would do. You're dealing with Mercury retrograde, and especially it's in Sag, and then it goes to Scorpio. I would not move during Mercury retrograde. Okay, I would do when Mercury is in retrograde in Scorpio, what you need to do, you need to get wise.
Okay.
And you need to strategize a plan. So if I were you, I would be cool. I would kind of go along with things. And what I would do is I would talk to people, any kind of support that you can get. You need to put away some money, okay? You've got to figure out an exit strategy, and then but you got to be cool about it. Now Mars is going to be your friend, okay? Because Mars is Sag, and you could have. Let's find out, and you could do this in a relatively short period of time.
Okay.
So let's find out where Mars needs to get to 28 degrees. So Mars gets to 28 degrees fairly soon, actually. Okay. Mars goes to 28 degrees on the 15th. Okay, so that means Mars will be conjunct your natal Jupiter. All right? So even though Mercury is going to be retrograde, all right, you want to keep your options open for something happening right around that time. All right? If an opportunity opens, and it would start really the week, starting with the 11th. So it's next week. It's really, really close. You want to be open to any kind of opportunity to get out during that time. If nothing happens during that time, you still have the Mercury retrograde window, okay? And then your next window would be just before the end of the year, which would be at 24 degrees, 26 degrees Sagittarius. Then that conjuncts your natal Sag. So here's how this could work, by the way, because Venus will be at 16 degrees too. That's actually a much more opportune time. What you want to do is you want to keep your eyes and ears open for any kind of like somebody says, I've got somebody moving out of my place at the end of the year, and that would happen to you maybe right around the middle of next week when Mars conjuncts your natal Jupiter. And then you literally have 3 weeks in order to get your affairs in a row. And when Mercury moves forward and jumps to 24 degrees, Sagittarius conjuncting your Jupiter, that would be your window.
Okay. What time would that be? Would that be December or end of
December. The 28th, 29th of December. So but the call for that to happen would likely occur when Mars conjuncts your Jupiter, and that starts next week. So keep your eyes and ears open, all right? In the meantime, Just be cool, go along with the program, but work on your exit strategy, okay?
Okay.
All right. And then when the door opens, don't look back.
Get out. I just got another vehicle, which is more reliable, and I just got a storage unit. I rented a storage unit, so I'm making my plans here. Okay.
Well, God bless you. And if there's any consolation, I've got a friend who was born in the same year. She was born on the 21st of August. She went through something very similar 2 years ago, and her husband of 10 years decided to essentially kick her out. So she's done incredibly well, by the way. Okay. So if there's any consolation, you can navigate this, all right?
All right. Thank you so much for your help. I didn't know what to do today. Now I have a plan. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for calling in. Take good care, and God bless.
You too. Bless you too. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I have time for one more call. It is Gussie is here, and then I'll be back on Friday, by the way, with Brian Tuohy. And Brian Tuohy is the author of The Fix is In, and it's about how pro sports are fixed from a gambling perspective. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm a sports guy, and I've known sports is fixed for a long time. But I'll talk to him, and we'll get down and dirty with sports in America. So let's take one more call, and if I don't get to you today, robertphoenix.com is my website. I do readings for a living, and you can go there and robertphoenix at robertphoenix.com. You can reach me through that email address, and you can set something up. All right, let's go to Gussie is here. Hello, Gussie.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. You're welcome.
I do astrology myself, so I know my chart pretty well.
Okay. Great.
So let's just jump right in.
All right.
You see, March 15, 1957.
Okay, I'm just going to do a quick solar kind of ephemeris with you, especially since you know your own chart fairly well.
I do pretty well.
So you have my mother's birthday, the Ides of March.
Oh, yep, that's right.
Yeah. Let's see. 1957. Okay. March 15th. I'm there now. All right.
Okay. Do you need more? Do you need more than that?
What's your ascendant?
Cancer, about 6 degrees. I was born around 11. I was born at 11:48 a.m. in Berkeley.
Okay.
So that is a Cancer ascendant. Let's see.
Okay. So what's on your mind?
Well, life. What can I say?
Yeah. So are you looking for like a little insight, or is there some specific area that?
There's. I know if you got the chart in front of you. I mean, I love talking to astrology with a fellow astrologer. If there's anything, you can take a look at the chart and just kind of tell me what jumps out. I can tell you that the absolute worst aspect of my life right now is financial and work or lack thereof.
Yeah. Well, you've got your true node return coming, right? I mean, that's coming your way. And
what was that?
Your true node is at.
In Scorpio, 22 degrees. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And that's actually a pretty meaningful moment. I talked a little bit about that earlier in the show today, and because let me just go through this here. I saw this. What was I looking at? It's actually trine your Mercury, right? And it's trine your Mercury. It's a pretty close orb. It's a 4-degree orb. So one of the things that I like about that return is that it gives you kind of more of a sense of focus, and Scorpio is a real survival sign. It's like you could use a little injection of that with all that Pisces in your chart. And the thing I like about Scorpio too is that it gives you. What house is that in for you? Is that your 5th house? Is that what that is?
Are you talking about the North Node?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it is in the 5th house, yes.
So what you have now is the return of the North Node in your 5th house, and also with Saturn moving through your 5th house, is the ability to kind of recreate your creativity, you know. And so, and I know that it's challenging on the job front. It's going to be challenging on the job front whether you try to get a job or do something creative anyway. So you may as well do something creative, right? You may as well try to figure out something that can resurrect your creativity, which is what the 5th house is going to be about. Have you ever thought about working with kids?
Oh God, no. I've done some tutoring and teaching. Oh God, no. Okay. I say that so emphatically because it's really the parents. Oh God, don't even get me started. No. No, I don't want to. No, no. Especially in this generation. Oh my God, they are spoiled, rotten monsters. No.
I've got an 8-year-old. I'll take exception to my kid, but
no, I'm not saying all of them, but the society that we are now, no.
Okay, so then let's focus on creativity then, because that's really where you're going to want to invest in the 5th house. You know, because Saturn's going to be going through there. What we know about Saturn is that whatever house it goes through, whatever planets it touches, you're gonna, you know, right now Saturn is on your Neptune too, right?
Right.
So you know, part of what your generation with Neptune and Scorpio, I'm raising my hand as well, is that we have to take our spiritual life very seriously now. Okay? We've got to understand that all these spiritual gifts with Neptune and Scorpio, which include clairvoyance, ESP, the ability to understand occult concepts, that these must be put to use now. And they have to be put to very definitive culture-shaping use. So they have to support the whole. It's imperative. Okay? If we look at like this whole like concept of like Lord of the Rings, where there's this battle between like Gandalf and Sauron, you know, we have to understand that the forces of Sauron are rising, and we must be able to put Saturn in play on top of Neptune and Scorpio. So it's about focus. It's about using our spiritual inheritance in a way that supports the future. And with it being in your 5th house, it also has to do with creativity. So you've got to reinvest in your creativity somehow. You're very creative, you know. You've got all this Pisces in your chart.
Well, I used to be, but life has really battered me and beat me down. And I can't, you know, without a job, without a, you know, it's beat me down. I will be it's just that simple.
So what's on? So your Cancer ascendant, you've got Pluto going through your 7th right now. Is that right?
Yeah, just past the. See, Pluto right now is at just on the just like right on the cusp right there of the 7th house, like literally, but like within a degree past the cusp.
You know what's really interesting is I just flashed on these hard candies called Royal Crown Sours. And I haven't thought about these things in years. And I don't know if it has any kind of merit to our conversation right now, but there's something about Royal Crown Sour that is important to understand here. I don't know what that is, but it's either, and I don't mean to be sound dismissive here, but there's something about the sour quality or sour grapes, and it's about falling away from the crown or your own sovereignty. And what's interesting is that you've got the true node return, and then the Saturn going over your Neptune in the 5th house. The 5th house is all about the crown. It's all about Leo and kings and queens.
All right.
So what you want to do, and I can't give you any specific information about about jobs, but fundamentally everything happens at an energetic level, and I think you have the opportunity to reshape and refocus and reinvent yourself in terms of getting your power back, grabbing your power back. It's the fifth house. It's about your own sovereignty, and it's about saying, this is what I am going to do, and not having somebody else say, you can do this, you can't do this, or about blaming another person that they've made your life, or society's made your life, or the elite have made your life in a certain way. That's not the case, especially now with Saturn moving through that house. Now's the time for you to reclaim that. And only you, I think, have the power to do that. You've got Mars and Gemini too, by the way, right?
Oh, Taurus. It's Taurus.
Taurus. Oh, that's right, the 15th. 28 degrees, yeah. So Mars and Taurus, once you make up your mind, by the way, the South Node is on your Mars. That's hard. That's really hard, because what it does is it brings up what you can't do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. I'm not going to dismiss that. But the thing is, right, is that ultimately, are we victims or not? I don't think we are. And I think with these fixed signs, with the true node, going over, you having the true node return, which is coming, Saturn going over
that's already passed.
So you have the opportunity to change this. You have the opportunity to recreate yourself in the fifth house, which is the house of creation, in sovereign rule.
The true node has already passed.
Yeah.
It's actually 5 degrees past that already. So
you have Saturn on your Neptune, and you can shift this. Where are we? When is our we're going to have a, let's see, we just had the full moon in Taurus, but we're going to have a new moon in Scorpio. Is that right? Coming up here?
Yeah, sometime.
So I would, the next full moon is your full moon. Okay.
New moon or full moon?
So we just came out at the new moon. The next new moon is your moment. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The next new moon, which is shortly, I don't have it in front of me. But this is your moment in time where you can, with the right intention, with the proper intention, shift some of this stuff in a very big way. Okay. You need to make up your mind, and you need to commit your will. Commit your will to recreate yourself with that fifth house.
Don't you see Saturn there as I know all about Saturn, let me tell you, because Saturn squares about half of my chart, actually, in my natal chart. It squares
natal chart with Sagittarius, right?
Saturn's right smack dab in the middle of Sag, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It squares all my Pisces, and it squares all my Virgo, Moon and my Jupiter both.
Yeah.
So I know everything about Saturn, and it is friggin' depressing.
Well, it can be. Saturn can be depressing, but all those signs you just mentioned, right? Those are mutable signs.
They are, yeah.
And what Saturn is doing right now is it's in a fixed house on a fixed planet, right? I'm not on a fixed planet, on a fixed sign on a mutable planet. But so you have the opportunity to quote unquote fix it.
It's not something you just fix in one day or in one new moon, which, by the way, I just looked it up for you. Mm-hmm. It is on November 13th.
November 13th. So we're right around the corner.
But it's also the same, a new moon and a total eclipse of the sun.
There you go. That's right. And it's in Scorpio. So where's that going to be? It's going to be your fifth house, right?
I don't know what the grade is. I can find that out for you in a minute. But oh no, I think that, just kind of continue with this discussion. The fact that it's a total eclipse of the sun, that makes it less. That just what's the word I'm looking for? Disseminates or weakens the new moon.
Yeah.
That puts a darkness on it.
Well, I don't know. I think for me I think it's a quantum moment. I think you're staring down a quantum moment with an eclipse.
Huh.
I went through Saturn hitting all of my 11th house planets. I went through Saturn hitting my Moon, my Mercury, my Venus, and then hung out there for 2 years. 2 years. And it was, at the beginning, I grant you, it was depressing. But once I got into it and made some changes in my life, it was one of the best transits in my life. So I think that Saturn on Neptune, Neptune in some ways is the ruler of your chart with all that Pisces in your chart.
Right.
So, you have the opportunity with Saturn on your Neptune to really get into this whole notion of creativity and practical magic.
Hmm.
So that's, again, fixed. We're talking about fixed energy. And you can, once you focus and commit and fix and start something that is, I think really, for you, with this aspect, it's about making up your mind. Making up your mind. And once you make up your mind and say, I'm going to commit to doing this, then what happens is that all those mutable planets begin to dance to Saturn's tune in a fixed house on a fixed time in your chart.
That's interesting.
One astrologer's
okay. That's something that's food for thought. I found it for you, by the way. The new moon, the solar eclipse and the new moon on November 30th, 22 degrees Scorpio. FYI. Okay, FYI.
Here we go.
Yeah, there you go. So.
All right. Well, listen. Take good care of yourself, and don't be a stranger to the show. Call back in.
Thank you.
And let us know how things go. All right. I always like to get updates from people.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you so much for just taking the time to talk astrology. I just really, I enjoy your input and listening to your program, and just it's really enjoyable to talk to somebody else who's on my wavelength. It's not very often that I don't meet people like that very often. So thanks so much.
Well, good. Well, we're here every Wednesday.
Oh, are you? Okay.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
And if you're listening now, you're listening to the recorded version of today's show, which has ended, and it ended 7 minutes ago. So I want to thank everybody that called in. It was a great show, and it's a great show to get back on track with. And it feels good to be here in Austin. It feels good to do radio here in Austin. And as always, I want to thank Erica Meringer for helping out and putting these shows up on YouTube. And you can find them there on YouTube as well as the Blog Talk archive. All right, so you know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been navigating the astrological matrix. I'll be back in 2 days with Brian Toohey, exploring the world of sports. And speaking of fixed, the fix is in the title of his book. I'll see you then.
In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory, come forth in this hour of the victory of the God's flame. I am the full power